We have to be aware of the systems that are operating around us and sometimes on us so that we can understand things like the financial crisis or a pandemic, how that spreads.
Mike, let's start by connecting cooperative design to what we're seeing all around us today.
One of the things about the world we live in today is that we are far more interconnected than any time in human history before this. We have 24-hour news. I was able to eat grapes today that came from Chile and a pear from South Africa. Everything in our lives is interconnected. What this means is that we have to be aware of the systems that are operating around us and sometimes on us so that we can understand things like the financial crisis in 2008. How did that happen? There's a very definable system we can look at. Or a pandemic, how that spreads. In December, January, there were a lot of people saying, oh, this isn't something you need to worry about. February, a few people started getting more worried. And those people who understood how systems work and how viruses spread as a system were very worried, and rightfully so. And likewise today, we have people saying, okay, well, that wasn't great, but at least we're past it. No, we're really not past it at all. And we need to understand that as a system. If you understand how systems work in our lives, then we can understand the systems we're part of and how our response to those systems can either reinforce them or abate them. So if I go and deliver water to a bunch of people protesting, that may seem like a small thing, but you know what? I'm helping somebody else out and I am reinforcing that system. It's going to go on further. And if I understand it from a systems point of view, I understand that really it doesn't require everyone to bring water. As a friend of mine once said, it's not necessary that everyone do everything, but everyone needs to do something. It's much easier to understand the kinds of things we can be watching for and doing in our lives and in our work, and just in terms of product design, if we understand the systems that are operating there. The core of it really is that you have individual parts, individual things. A bird in a flock is a part. The flock itself is the whole. And in between there are the loops in terms of how two birds or two things interact with each other. This is a great diagram of predator and prey. So you have lynxes and hares, where in this case we have lynxes decrease the number of hares, not surprisingly. And if the lynxes are able to eat, then presumably they're also able to reproduce, and so you get more lynxes. Meanwhile, the hares in this model are just reinforcing themselves. They are growing on their own. But what you don't see with this is any sort of linear increase in lynxes or hares. What you see is instead an oscillating increase and decrease, because if the lynxes eat too many hares and the hares aren't able to reproduce, then the lynxes aren't able to reproduce either, and their population crashes. And so we see this kind of thing quite often in biological and in some social systems. The parts here are the lynxes and the hares. The loops are, as you can see, the hares have a self-reinforcing loop, and the lynxes and the hares have a balancing loop. And the whole that you have here is an ecology or a biosphere. We have this opportunity to intentionally structure situations where people can cooperate and can get that kind of value out of their cooperation. I think taking a long view for just a moment, if I am making a product of whatever type, that's my job and that's my work, and great. But if I feel good about myself at the end of the day, if I feel like I've helped my team at the end of the day, then I'm going to be much more excited about coming back to work tomorrow and next week and next year, and have that great sense of fulfillment that you have when you do anything that is personally meaningful to you. So I think one of the great ancillary benefits that we may overlook sometimes with cooperative design is not just in the moment, but over the long haul, that we really do have this feeling of meaning that we derive from cooperative efforts.
For those of us who create digital products, there is this experience that players have of your product, your game, your service. And the whole is from the moment they hear about it till their last touch with it. That the journey over time, which we'll get to in a moment. But you've got this great diagram in your book about the player feedback loop. And there's a lot that builds on this core loop. But this picture has parts, holes, and a loop. So make that connection for us.
Sure. So what we have here is a fairly typical player in game or player in your user and product situation, where the player in this case has inside them their intent, or what is it they're trying to do, and they're going to embody that intent and use it as input into the game. The game then does something, and that's the little looping diagram inside the game to change its internal state and provides feedback to the player to say, here's how things have changed, which then sets off the process again. The player says, oh, okay, so you made that move. Now I have these intents going on in my head. I want to do something new. I'm going to provide input into the game again. This is in one diagram how a game is played or how a product is used, where both the game and the player have internal state going on and systems within them.
This leads us right into one of the things that us product designers struggle with, which is progression and how to think about it in loops instead of mechanics.
Yes, again, we have the player as an intent. They do something, the game makes some internal changes and gives feedback to the player. But there's another thing that's going on here, riding along with that feedback, is that the player, their place in the game, their experience of the game, the things they know how to do is changing over time. And this is one of the ways that we keep people engaged, is by having them progress, get rewards. We all respond to various rewards from, I cleared this level, or I got a badge, or I got a, some gold in the game, whatever it is. It's not those things specifically, the badge, the gold, or anything like that makes the difference. It's that I see that I am on a journey, that I'm progressing through this in a way that is meaningful to me, and that adds to my own intent so that I can do new things in the game.
The basics of this, the stuff we talked about today, every product designer everywhere can benefit from. We are supporting what we think are really important transformational ways of looking at the world for you as product creators, so that we can have the world that we want to live in.
I hope that if you're interested, that you'll take a look at the book that I wrote. It is a game design book, but it is broadly applicable to many of the things as we've been talking about here. It is somewhat advanced, and so one of the things we're working on is to bring this to people who are not necessarily ready to jump in with both feet into systems design and game design, and really highlight the core aspects of this. So that's one of the things that Amy Jo and I are collaborating on now.
Thank you, Mike, so much. All of us will be able to bring our knowledge and our passion for cooperative systems into everything that we do.
To learn about our systems thinking course and other programs for product leaders, go to gamethinking.io.